PD Beats here from Pop Turner, speaking to Iantha Richardson about season 2 of Will Trent on ABC. Welcome to the show. It's so good to see you.
You. It's great to see you too.
You know, it's interesting because it's kind of an equal playing field for everyone for season 1 because you've never played this character before. We've kind of there's the Karen Slaughter books, so there is like we've read about these characters a little bit. So I'm just curious, what's it like returning for season 2? Do you know this character? Are you still learning about this character? What's that mindset like for you?
It's yes, and it's both. Like I do feel like I know her because I spent a whole year with her just trying to figure out who she is, how she ticks, how she moves. But then also, like there are aspects that she is still discovering for herself in this season, and we're in a new territory. So I'm discovering that with the character. So I think it's both. I feel a lot more solidified in the way she ticks, like her inner workings, her history, things like that. But how would she deal with the things that are coming to her in the current moment? I think we're figuring that out together, me and Faith.
100%. You know, whenever something is, because at the end of the day, there are the Will Trent kind of novels, and then this is the show on ABC. And in a lot of ways, you know, as a cast and crew, you want to pay homage, do it justice, and everything. Karen's amazing work. But at the end of the day, this is the live action adaptation TV show, right? It's not the books. So, what is your relationship with that source material? Do you have to kind of like step away a little bit? Are you interested? Like, I'm just curious about that. That interests me.
Yeah, during the first season, I asked a lot of questions just
Yeah.
about like what did the book give to the readers? How did they portray this person?
Mhm.
And then how much freedom do I have? And it turned out that there is a lot of freedom in the way that I got to play Faith. And yet she still comes with the same set of circumstances. She still is a teen mom. She still has a mother who was released from the workforce for some pretty grimy deeds that she did. She still has a relationship with Amanda that is, up and down. Her and
Yeah.
Will are still coming in at odds. And so, the circumstances are the same. Her feelings about the things are the same, but it's also like the essence of Iantha now. You get to breathe a little bit of life into this character. So the book was very helpful, but that was just a roadblock. And then we get to spout out and do our own things and make it movie magic as we get to translate it to screen.
And you know, TV shows, especially now, like they're still in production and everything. What is the pace like with Will Trent compared to other projects you've been on for your stuff specifically? Because different people maybe have different kind of, you know, days where it's longer or slower. What's your pace like overall? Is there an equal pace or is it different depending on the day?
It's different. It's different depending on the show. It's different depending on the content. We have a lot more like action. We're inside, we're outside, than some of the shows that I've been on before. Like This Is Us is very relationship based. And so you're sitting indoors or outdoors, but you're having conversations. A lot of that is conversational. There's not a ton, at least in the scenes that was in, a lot of running or jumping or doing actions or shooting people. Whereas Will Trent, there's a lot of that. So it takes a lot more time and there's um more just a different pace to it. Good Trouble had a lot of conversations and a lot of energy towards it, and that had a different pace. But I think this one definitely feels like we're still getting into the rhythm of it, but it's one that is very, it takes more time, it takes more effort. I've never been on a show that had cops on it before, so that's new and exciting. But I think we're getting into the groove of it pretty well.
My next question, in a lot of ways, the answer to this question is probably be you really try not to think about things like this. But I feel like there's going to be situations where you just can't not, right? Because of like it's always out there. But like you make season one's a big hit. It's announced that you're coming back for season two, even before getting kind of scripts or getting the official kind of like days where you're coming back to shoot. Like, is there like a little bit not pressure, but like what is that mindset? Is it an overwhelming mindset of like what's next for you as an actor storyteller?
Like in terms of what's next in
Exactly, yeah.
or
Because
yes.
like the thing is, you try not to think about it much until it's there, right? As like a pro, as a like when it's there, right? But like you're just gonna be like thinking about hypotheticals if it's not if you're doing it too early. I feel like.
Right. Yeah. I think it's exactly what you said. You try not to think about it too much. There's always like, this is your livelihood. So what's going to happen? What do I need to do? How do I need to prepare in that way? But in terms of like so the question of like, if we're getting picked up, like, is this going to happen? Is that going to not
Yeah.
like the that. I will say, in true transparency, I had an overwhelming peace around it. Like, I think we did such a great job, and I felt good about the first season that whatever would be to come, given the circumstances of the strike and just the
Yes.
climate of the entertainment industry at that moment, like whether we did or whether we didn't, I knew that we did great work and it was received well. And that's all I really cared about at the moment, is putting out good work. And then to hear that you get picked up, that is an overwhelming feeling of like,
It's like
oh
two
my,
separate like little journeys in a lot of ways.
separate journeys. You're like, oh my gosh, like, wow, what a blessing. I get to do this all over again. I get to like continue this person's story. And then when you're in it, you're just in it. Like you're like, let me get through it. Let me make sure I'm doing the best work possible and let me be present as much as possible. And
Yeah.
so a lot of time for the future when you're in it. But there is always thought of like, well, what do I want to do after this? How is this setting me up? You know, I'm often like a planner in that
Well,
sense.
like
But
it's the on to the next. Well, it's funny because I have a lot of friends who are actors too, and like I feel like the two biggest like misconceptions are like one, a lot of people just think that actors know everything that's going on, which I
out in the dust, don't know anything.
and
Like,
I feel like people are realizing that more and more like when they watch interviews and stuff and like people are asking certain questions and they're like, "Ooh, that's a good question. I wish I knew as well."
you're the last, like not the
Yeah.
last, but I'm not a producer. Producers are the
Yeah.
ones who have so much information, and
But also
sometimes
it really is on to the next. Like you might have a really you're going to always have special experiences on set, right, that you're going to love, but there is this kind of like it like the show event or the movie gets out there in the world, it's out of your hands, and it really is kind of like on to the next if you think about it.
let's go on. And by
Yeah.
the time the world engulfs it, not for this particular project, because we're shooting and it's coming out at the same time, but oftentimes, like by the time the world gets the information, you've been so far removed from it, you're like, oh yeah, that was great. Like
Do
that was
you
such
know it's like a TV drama when you audition for it? So like are you able to kind of prepare that maybe it's going to be one of those shows that it's going to be like you're going to film it and then it comes out and you film it, or like do you have no idea when you audition?
no clue. No clue what was gonna happen or how this was gonna translate. It was just like, oh my gosh, I'm grateful I have like this really cool character to play in this
Yeah.
job, in such a climate. So yeah.
A show like Will Trent, everyone's kind of on the edge of their seat. Everyone's kind of playing detective as a viewer, kind of figuring out what's going on. And this is one of those shows that creates those kind of like week to week dinner table conversations and like theories and who done it, so to speak. When does that start kind of sinking in for you that you're on a show like that? Because that's a really special feeling, to be honest with you.
Yeah, I don't even think it's sunk in currently. Like, every time someone's like, this is a really popular show, I'm like, oh, that's
Cool.
amazing. Like, I was like, that's great. Like, especially while we're still filming, it's like, oh, I am head deep 14-hour days just trying to like wake up and work out at least,
Yeah.
before I'm engulfed by the set. So maybe when we stop and then I can like pick my head up and say like, oh wow, this is what we've been doing. Like I'm really like that's great. But while we're in it, I have to be very honest in saying like the time is not a construct.
It's so crazy. We talked about it a little bit before we started. I mean, Betty is a star.
She's a star. She's a whole star. Like Belle is her real name. Betty is a star.
So like, so how when do you get like the full scripts in advance to know about Betty? Like, so So it's funny. So you obviously read the scripts before seeing Betty, essentially, right? Do you have a
Yeah.
description of the dog and like the type, like the situation? Yeah.
Yeah, it's like Betty barks and you know what she wants, and it's in the script. She has written lines. Betty does not even live in Atlanta. She lives in Florida. She gets flown in. Like she is a true star.
I just loved it. Didn't take long. Like I think it was like episode 2 or 3 of season 1, and there was like memes all over the place.
Immediately loved, and that's how you know she's a star. Like it's really crazy, but she's really sweet to work with. She's the cutest little dog that you'll ever meet, and she has to hit her mark. She has to be bark on cue, and she works really hard. I will say.
Absolutely. How you mentioned, This Is Us, Good Trouble. How separate are these storytelling journeys for you? Like, does any of that stuff from preparation of characters or experiences come with you to Will Trent, or are they all separate at the end of the day?
I will say they all kind of come with me just because it's me, right?
Yeah.
Like I always find a part of myself that resonates in each one of these women.
Yep.
And because I find a part of myself, that's the through line. Like I am a multifaceted human being, just like all these women. I may not engulf every single aspect of them. Some parts I play, some parts are naturally me, but the part that is me is what resonates throughout all of them.
Last question before we wrap up. I'm wondering from your perspective of someone, I mean, you can answer this as like a viewer, you can answer this as someone who works on the show. What do you think is like the real special element of Will Trent that is making it so popular? I mean, there might not be an actual answer for this, but is there one element? Because the show has many elements. It's got a lot of heart. People love the crime aspect of it. You mentioned, the action, but is there one element that sticks out to you? Like, I'm just specific. I'm like interested in that.
I think the communal nature of trying to figure out who did it, like
Who
in
done
that,
it? Absolutely,
yeah,
yeah.
who done it point of view brings people together in such a rich way
Yep.
that breaks barriers of time and space. Like I always said for certain shows that I was on, I was like, the things that break the race, the gender, barrier, all the barriers, the religious barriers that come between us as human beings and just bring us there in one moment, one night to just be people. Those are the shows that are special. And I think this does that in a really cool way of just like, figuring out a mystery, like a very simple thing, and then following this very human character, Will Trent, who, although has his flaws, has his really, really heart-wrenching backstory, is also working through life to do the best that he can. And everybody can relate to that because I think that's
Absolutely. And episodes are rolling out on ABC, season 2 of Will Trent, and you are still making episodes of Will Trent, so it's like a crazy time.
we're still in the thick of it. We got about a month to go. Yeah.
That's so cool to think about, and we get to talk about it a little bit, and like it's actually really cool.
Cool. Really
It's
cool.
like it's cool because it's like you know it's fresh, right? If you think about it, these interviews, I don't like going into spoilers much. I always walk on eggshells because I'm a big believer of the craft and the behind the scenes, how you got there. But it's like, I bet you if people ask you about like episodes, like it's very fresh. Like you remember a lot.
Right there. Like you want an episode 7, but also like they are, but they aren't. You'd be very surprised as to know, like once I'm done with an episode, and most people we're so on to the next, as we were talking about before. I'm like, what happened to episode 2? What did I do?
Yeah,
Okay.
I just wrapped my film like over the weekend, and it really is like,
What happened?
yeah, it just
You did it. Okay, great.
it feels like that.
Yes.
And it was such a fun special shoot, right? And like, but it really feels like that. And everyone else goes to the next thing.
That's it. You're just like, okay, we're on well, I'm in episode 8. I don't know what happened episode 3. Like I haven't been there in months. Like, so yeah.
That's an interesting thing to think about too. That you could have a whole podcast on that. Like every episode being its own, like filming every episode being its own journey and its own, like you're making like 8 movies if you think about it.
Because we have a different crew, I mean, not crew, but we have a different director. Our ADs change each episode, like every other episode. So we got different sets of people we're working with. Guest stars are coming in and out. Like it's a different world. So yeah.
It's so crazy. So great chatting with you. Thank you so much for coming on the show.
Thank you for having me. It was really lovely to speak to you.
Really lovely to speak with you too. Yeah, season 2 episodes of Will Trent on ABC. You have an Instagram account people keep update with?
I do. Iantha Sheri, IANTHASHERII.
Awesome. Well, this has been Pop Turn at youtube.com/Pop Turn for previous episodes. PopTurn.com has other content as well. You can catch Iantha Richardson in season 2 of Will Trent on ABC. Episodes rolling out week by week, and they're still making it. Until next time, this is Iantha and PD Beats signing off.
Thank you for tuning in to Popturnative. Make sure to check out our past episodes of Popturnative on YouTube.
This has been an Autograph Communications production.